You could almost hear the collective sound of sports talk shows hitting reverse the moment Shedeur Sanders walked into Brown's minicamp and started dropping dimes like he was writing a love letter to the doubters. And who was there, front and center, to say, "I told you so," louder than anyone else? Shannon. Freaking. Sharpe. The man didn't mince words. He didn't need to, because the truth was already on the field, slicing through coverage with the precision of a quarterback who was never supposed to be here this soon, but always knew he would be. And now, NFL analysts, bitter draft traditionalists, and those keyboard cowboys who've written off Sanders as just Dion's son are scrambling to rewrite the narrative they were so confident about just a few weeks ago. Let's break it all down. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. Let's be clear about something right out the gate. Shedeur Sanders didn't sneak into the NFL. He earned his way in. This is a guy who led the nation in completion percentage. 74%. That's not just good, that's surgical. He threw for nearly 4,200 yards and 38 touchdowns. The footwork? Clean. The reads? On point. The composure in the pocket? Better than most quarterbacks who were drafted 3 rounds before him. So what happened? Why did a quarterback with a statistically elite college resume drop all the way to the 5th round? Cue the he's arrogant argument. The he's cocky, he's immature. And of course, the classic. He's only in the conversation because of his last name. These weren't just online comments. These were takes being thrown around by big names in sports media. Pundits who should know better, reducing Shedeur's years of work and discipline into a caricature of entitlement. But then Shannon Sharpe entered the chat. When critics piled on Shedeur after the draft, it wasn't just about doubting his game. They questioned his character. A now infamous interview clip got circulated, taken wildly out of context, where Sanders apparently said, "Maybe I'm not the guy for you," in response to the New York Giants' strange film session during his pre-draft visit. That moment got spun into an entire narrative. Suddenly, Sanders was difficult. He was defensive. He was the diva? Not so fast, said Sharpe. Shannon Sharpe didn't just defend Sanders. He torched the idea that Shedeur was arrogant or unprepared. He pulled receipts, highlighting stats, breaking down tape, and using his own NFL pedigree to explain why quarterbacks need that confidence. "This kid's got everything you want from a quarterback," Sharpe said on his show. "Poise, intelligence, production, and yeah, a little bit of swag. So what? You don't want a quarterback who doubts himself. You want one who believes he can win every game." Sharpe even challenged the media's double standards, pointing out how confidence in quarterbacks like Joe Burrow is celebrated. But when it comes from Shedeur Sanders, it becomes a red flag. Let's talk about that. There's a reason people are saying Shedeur got the Cam Newton treatment. When black quarterbacks carry themselves with confidence, it's too often labeled as ego or entitlement. And that's exactly what Sharpe called out. He drew a direct line between Shedeur's confident demeanor and how quickly the sports world tried to weaponize it. "Y'all didn't say nothing when Johnny Manziel came out of college acting like a rock star," Sharpe said. But when Shedeur says he knows his worth, suddenly he's a problem? The hypocrisy is stunning, but not surprising. NFL franchises, for all their emphasis on leadership, often don't know how to handle quarterbacks who bring charisma that doesn't fit the mold. And media personalities? They're quick to jump on narratives that generate views, whether they're accurate or not. But what they weren't ready for was what came next. Shedeur Sanders didn't just come into minicamp looking good. He came in ready, calm in the huddle, sharp in his decision-making, efficient, focused, and most importantly, accurate. Reports started to leak, first quietly, then loudly. The Browns were moving Sanders up the depth chart, past the undrafted rookies, past the struggling third-rounder Dylan Gabriel, right into the mix for QB2. And in some reps, even getting looks with the starters. That's when the backpedaling started. Colin Cowherd, who'd previously bashed Shedeur's draft interview, praised his growth. Others called it performance surprising or mature beyond expectations. It's the oldest trick in the media playbook. Doubt the kid, then flip the script once he proves you wrong, and pretend you were on board the whole time. But not Sharpe. He'd been there from the start. And now, as Sanders moved up the ranks, his earlier defense rang louder than ever. The real scandal here isn't that Sanders is being promoted. It's that he was doubted so thoroughly in the first place. How does a quarterback with elite production, NFL-level decision-making, and high football IQ fall to the fifth round? How do so many analysts miss the fact that Sanders wasn't just Deion's son? He was a quarterback who had studied the position at a high level, grown year over year, and demonstrated all the traits you look for in a franchise leader. It all comes back to gatekeeping. There's a mold in the NFL: quiet, humble, measured, reserved. And when players don't fit that mold, especially quarterbacks, they get punished for it. But here's the reality. Shedeur isn't trying to fit the mold. He's breaking it. He's unapologetically confident. He embraces his legacy, but makes it clear he's carving his own path. And now, he's doing it within the NFL, where the lights are brighter and the stakes are higher. The Browns promoting Sanders to the second team isn't just a personnel move. It's a statement. It says, we see the potential. We recognize the talent. And we're not afraid to move past politics and lean into performance. This could signal a shift in the Browns' approach. A team that has long been plagued by quarterback instability, finally realizing they might have a true answer in their building. Whether he becomes a Week 1 starter or not, Sanders' presence is putting pressure on everyone ahead of him. He's raising the standard in the QB room. And he's showing fans that this team has more upside than anyone expected. And don't think for a second that Shannon Sharpe isn't grinning ear to ear every time Sanders zips a ball through a tight window or calls an audible with authority. Because this isn't just a win for Sanders. It's a win for everyone who believes talent, grit, and confidence deserve a seat at the table. The haters were loud. The doubters were bold. But Shedeur Sanders? He kept working, kept proving, kept rising. And now, he's no longer knocking on the door of NFL legitimacy. He's already inside, second on the depth chart, first in reps with something to prove. So, to the critics who dismissed him as arrogant, to the scouts who labeled him as a project, and to the media who rushed to cast him as a diva, you're out of excuses, and you're out of time, because Shedeur Sanders is here. And the truth? It was always right in front of you. Let's be real. What we're witnessing with Shedeur Sanders isn't just a rookie adjusting to life in the NFL. This is a full-blown redefinition of how quarterback prospects are perceived, developed, and challenged in real time. And it's making a lot of people nervous. Because when someone this confident, this talented, and this ready comes out of the fifth round and starts displacing veterans in a city as volatile as Cleveland, you're not just watching a player rise. You're watching an entire system get exposed. Let's not sugarcoat it. The Browns have been in quarterback purgatory for decades. Every year, it's the same tired cycle. Draft a guy high, hype him up, crash and burn by week 9, rinse and repeat. From Johnny Manziel to Deshaun Kaiser to Baker Mayfield to Deshaun Watson, the Browns haven't had a stable, drama-free quarterback situation since before social media existed. And now, seemingly out of nowhere, here comes Sanders, quietly grinding, sharpening his reads, outthrowing the veterans in practice, taking what should have been a developmental year and turning it into a hostile takeover. For the Browns front office, this is both a blessing and a terrifying dilemma. Because if Sanders is this good, this early, it means the clock is ticking on everyone ahead of him. And the fans? They're not exactly known for patience. Here's something the cameras don't always catch: energy. When Sanders walks into the huddle, it's different. Players listen. They respond. You can feel it, from the offensive line to the wide receivers. It's that subtle shift in chemistry when leadership feels real, not manufactured. Veteran defensive players like Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward have reportedly taken note of Sanders' preparation, his rhythm in drills, and the way he carries himself. Not like a rookie, not like someone waiting for permission, like someone who already knows this is his team. And in the NFL, that kind of presence changes things fast. It builds momentum. It builds belief. It builds tension. Because for every teammate who sees Sanders as a spark, there's another player, maybe a quarterback on the bubble, feeling the pressure tighten like a noose. And you better believe the coaching staff feels it too. If head coach Kevin Stefanski didn't have gray hairs before this camp, he might now. On one hand, you've got the veterans, the ones you paid, the ones who experience, the ones who know how to navigate the press and politics. On the other, you got Shedeur Sanders, outplaying everyone in camp with more polish than you ever expected. What do? Do you slow play his rise, risk losing momentum, and try to avoid a media circus? Or do you ride the lightning, name him QB2 officially, and prepare for the inevitable Week 5 cries to make him the starter when things go sideways with the current regime? It's a nightmare chessboard. One wrong move, and the locker room fractures. But Stefanski has been around long enough to know that in the NFL, talent wins. And the tape doesn't lie. Let's talk about the most dramatic reversal since that one guy on TikTok who hated pineapples and now owns a fruit truck. The media, which once called Shedeur everything from entitled to uncoachable, is now running highlight reels like he's a second coming of Steve Young. It's almost funny. You had Colin Cowherd calling Shedeur's pre-draft interview a disaster, hinting that he didn't have the emotional maturity for the NFL. Fast forward a few weeks, and suddenly Shedeur is poised, intelligent, and commanding, and no one's even pretending they didn't flip. It's what the NFL does best. Tear players down when they don't fit the mold, then act shocked when those same players force them to eat their words. But here's the thing. Shedeur never needed their approval. He didn't flinch when they doubted him. He didn't lash out. He just kept throwing clean, tight spirals that said more than any interview ever could. Let's be honest. Being Deion Sanders' son is both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, you got the legacy, the name recognition, and a built-in media presence. On the other, you've got impossible expectations. Every mistake is magnified. Every success is attributed to genetics instead of grit. Shedeur has been balancing that act since day one. But what we're seeing now, it's not a shadow. It's a separation. He's not just Deion's kid anymore. He's Shedeur, and the NFL is finally starting to say that name without a caveat attached. He didn't swagger into the league with reality shows and hype. He came in as a fifth-rounder with something to prove, and he's proving it on his own terms. The fan base is awakening. Something else is happening in Cleveland, something you can feel on Twitter, in Reddit threads, in the stands of training camp open sessions. Hope, not the kind of false hope that gets sold every draft cycle, but real, tangible, earned excitement. Fans are watching this kid hit throws with zip. They're watching him break down coverages on the sidelines. They're watching him stay after practice, fine-tuning his mechanics when everyone else has hit the showers. And they're starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, the Browns finally got it right. Not because of a flashy first-round pick, not because of a blockbuster trade, but because a 21-year-old kid outworked everyone else and left no room for denial. You think the Browns' PR department hasn't noticed the Shedeur buzz? Merch sales, camp attendance, social media metrics, local coverage, national attention. He's not just becoming a football story. He's becoming a brand. And in today's NFL, that matters. A quarterback who can play is valuable. A quarterback who can win and draw headlines, that's a franchise changer. If Shedeur continues on this trajectory, don't be surprised when you start seeing the Browns lean into the branding. Campaigns, hashtags, graphics, mic'd up moments. Because the business of football runs through quarterbacks, and Shedeur is gold right now. Training camp is about to get real. We're about to move from shorts and helmets to full pads. Preseason games are coming, and those developmental reps are going to start looking a lot like pressure tests. For Shedeur, it's go time. He doesn't just need to hold his spot on the depth chart. He needs to build on it, show growth, command the huddle, protect the football, win every opportunity. And if he does, if he walks into those preseason games and makes plays, real plays, then Stefanski, the front office, and even the skeptics in the national media are going to have a decision on their hands. Because at that point, the question won't be, should he be QB2? It'll be, Shedeur Sanders isn't just climbing a depth chart. He's flipping the script on how quarterbacks are judged, challenged, and promoted. He's showing that draft status doesn't define destiny. He's proving that confidence isn't a character flaw. It's a prerequisite for leadership. And most importantly, He's reminding everyone, fans, media, and the NFL itself, that greatness doesn't always come in the package you expect. Sometimes it comes in the form of a fifth-round pick with a chip on his shoulder, a laser arm, and a last name you thought you understood, until he showed you something new. So, Browns fans, buckle up, because this ride is just getting started. And Shedeur, he's not slowing down for anyone. Every training camp has its drama, but what's happening in Cleveland feels more like the build-up to a courtroom verdict. An entire league is watching. Shedeur Sanders has turned every rep into a referendum. Every throw, every scramble, every audible, evaluated under a microscope. He's not just fighting for a spot on the depth chart anymore. He's fighting for his narrative. Because make no mistake, the NFL loves a comeback story, but it hates being proven wrong. And right now, Sanders is making a lot of so-called experts uncomfortable. Remember all those draft day breakdowns? The ones that casually slid him into the maybe practice squad category? The ones that framed his confidence as cockiness and his pedigree as baggage? Yeah, they're aging like unrefrigerated milk. Now that he's dominating reps and showing command that veterans are struggling to match, those same analysts are scrambling to rewrite the scripts they already locked in months ago. Suddenly, Shedeur is improving faster than expected. Suddenly, he just needed the right environment. But the truth? The truth is, he's the same quarterback he was on draft day. The only thing that's changed is that people are finally watching. Talk to enough players off the record, and you'll hear the same thing. Sanders has it. Not the stats, though those are impressive. Not the highlight throws, though those make the rounds on social media. What he has is that unspoken edge, that sense that when he's under center, there's a plan, a rhythm, a vibe. He doesn't bark orders, but people listen. He doesn't need to prove he belongs. He makes you feel it. And for a Browns team that's been emotionally scattered and quarterback-infused for years, that presence is more valuable than any arm talent or 40-yard dash time. Veterans in the huddle feel steadier. Young receivers elevate their focus. Even the defense knows when Sanders is on the field. It's not a drill, it's a statement. And sure, the coaching staff might still be framing this as a rotation or an evaluation period. But internally, people know the tide is shifting. You don't coach this kind of presence. You either have it or you don't. And Shedeur has it in spades. On paper, the Browns should be thrilled. A young quarterback, drafted late, outperforming expectations, and potentially solving their longest-standing problem? That's a dream come true. Except it's complicated. Because Joe Flacco is still in the building. And say what you want about his age or mobility, but he's a Super Bowl MVP with real political capital. You bench him for a rookie, and you risk alienating parts of the locker room who value experience over upside. Then there's Kenny Pickett, recently acquired, still young, still considered developing. If you push Shedeur ahead of him too quickly, what message does that send? And finally, there's a front office. Andrew Berry might be high on Sanders now, but don't forget, this is the same group that spent real money, draft picks, and time trying to make Deshaun Watson and others work. Admitting that their fifth rounder is better than everyone else isn't just a football decision. It's a political landmine, which is why the coaching staff is walking the world's thinnest tightrope right now. Praise him too openly, and you cause unrest. Bury him too long, and you lose credibility. So, they've opted for the classic NFL playbook tactic. Controlled chaos. Leak a little praise to the media. Give him a few extra first-team snaps. Say things like, "We love his development," without ever confirming anything. It's football's version of plausible deniability. And it won't last forever. Because when that first preseason game kicks off, all the secrets go public. This is it. The moment that turns potential into proof. When Shedeur steps onto that field in his first NFL preseason game, he's not just battling for stats. He's battling for belief. League-wide, it's the kind of moment that changes careers. A good outing makes him the hottest topic on every sports panel. A great outing? That ignites a wildfire. He'll face disguised coverages. Blitz packages designed to confuse him, and hungry third-string defenders trying to make a roster. It won't be easy. But it doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be composed. If Shedeur shows he can stay calm in the pocket, move through reads, and execute clean drives? That's enough. That's more than enough to flip the narrative from interesting prospect to inevitable starter. And at that point, it's no longer a question of if he starts. It's when you can already hear the gears turning in the sports world's media machine. The same talking heads who mocked Sanders' draft slide are now suddenly excited to see what he does. The podcast bros are reevaluating their QB rankings. The YouTube analysts who cut hit pieces during draft week are now running highlight compilations from OTA footage. It's a beautiful hypocrisy, and Shedeur knows it. But what makes him dangerous is that he's not playing for them. He's not chasing their approval or trying to go viral. He's playing for respect, the kind you earn in the huddle, in the film room, and eventually in the win column. And while the media will twist themselves into knots trying to make it seem like they saw it coming all along, real ones know the truth. They doubted him, and he thrived anyway. The future is staring them in the face. At this point, the Browns front office can't afford to play the let's wait and see game for long. Not when the locker room is rallying, not when the fans are watching, and definitely not when Sanders is proving, day by day, that he's already ahead of schedule. By the time Week 1 rolls around, the team might still list him as QB2 on paper. But anyone paying attention will know the truth. He's QB1 in spirit. And in Cleveland, that's what counts. The NFL tried to sleep on Shedeur Sanders. Teams passed on him. Pundits mocked him. Critics tried to shrink him to fit their outdated templates. But he kept grinding, kept evolving, kept showing up. And now he's forcing an entire industry to take notice. This isn't a feel-good underdog tale. This is a story of a quarterback who refused to wait his turn, and whether they're ready or not. The league is about to see what happens when real preparation meets undeniable opportunity. Cleveland, you've been starved for a hero under center. You just might have found him,